So with me today is Jana Brody. She is the author of Sit Behind the Nets. Jana, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Perfect. Where in the world are you currently?
I am calling in from Santa Barbara, California, in the USA.
Wonderful. Thank you for calling in from all that far away. So let's talk about your book, Sit Behind the Nets. There's quite a story behind it. So where do you want to begin?
Well, I thank you for inviting me on for one. The title itself kind of is the message of the book. A lot of people aren't bookies these days, and it's not a very long book, but it's near and dear to my heart. And if you don't read the whole book, the title says it all, Sit Behind the Net. And this was inspired by an incident. My mother was hit by a foul ball at Dodger Stadium, a professional game of baseball, the Dodgers versus the Padres, late in the ninth inning. And the foul ball soared into the stadium above the netting and hit my mom in the head. 4 days later, she died. So it was kind of a traumatic experience, and I talk about it in the book. It's a little bit about healing. It's about fan safety. It's about using your voice for good in advocacy and speaking out against big corporations like the MLB franchise. And also, like I mentioned, quite healing. So it was traumatic, but something good came of it. Is that using my voice and speaking with interviewers. And once I got the news out to the press, slowly by slowly, things were getting noticed and injuries were getting noticed. And in the long run, MLB actually extended the netting all the way to the foul balls to, enhance the safety of their fans. And also at Dodger Stadium, they raised it higher to the section that my mom was sitting in. So again, her death was not in vain, and hopefully fans are now being more safe in this situation, and something good came of something terrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. Firstly, I am obviously so sorry about your mum, but it's amazing how you've been able to turn it into a movement for good. You touched on, the MLB, so the Major League Baseball organization. What challenges did you encounter initially when you're trying to start this movement to raise the safety awareness?
I was kind of surprised that there was any at all, but there was quite a bit. Again, the commissioner of baseball would be like the highest overseer of everything. He at one point had said that each baseball park is unique and they each have to do their own research and they each have to figure it out on their own. And that just pretty much delayed things. He could have just mandated everybody needs to do it. And, while you're away, it only takes 4 days to get it done as quick as possible. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And there's just a lot of naysayers and a lot of hecklers. I talk about that in my book too. Oh, you're taking the excitement out of the game. People want to catch the balls. These balls that I'm talking about are uncatchable. They're just causing damage and hitting children. And that was a silly kind of excuse to use. And then some hecklers would say, oh, we can't see as good behind the netting. And that's silly because the most expensive tickets are the ones directly behind the plate. And those have netting historically. And It's just like, anything you do after the first 5 minutes, your eyes adjust and it's no problem. So there was, questionable challenges and why they were holding back. But because I spoke with, on the news and it became this international kind of story and people really shocked by it, then the camera started to catch more incidences of injuries. And that's when it became too awkward for MLB not to do anything and for these teams not to step up. There was one incident, again, at Dodger Stadium, I believe, that the player actually saw his ball hit a child in his line of vision and he fell to his knees. He couldn't even bat anymore. It was like, that was awful that he could see it with his own eyes and realize what a terrible danger this is, where it could easily have been prevented, if they would have stepped up day one after my mom's death. Or if you read my book too, you'll find out that historically my mom was not the first one to die this way, especially at Dodger Stadium. It was 50 years earlier, a 14-year-old boy named Alan Fish, same thing. He was at the, I think at the third baseline. and he got hit and he died from a brain hemorrhage as well. And they should have made a change then, 50
Mm,
years ago. It's also related to big tobacco in my book. It's like, they were selling us cigarettes in the 50s, knowing that it's not a good thing, but they did it anyway. And here
yeah.
MLB is selling these tickets that are in harm's way, knowing that it's a danger zone. And I even did some research for my book, and I found out what the players think about it. And nobody wants to go to work thinking you're going to hurt somebody. And
Mm,
that's a terrible thing. But they, sometimes the wives or the families get free tickets. And if the player sees that they're in what they call the hot seat or the danger zone, they literally have their families moved. So they
mm.
know there's a danger, that there's a certain section that they don't even want their families to sit in. So why would MLB be selling these tickets, without any warnings, kind of thing? So yeah, it was pretty sad that it took this long, and again, it didn't even take the death of my mom. It took the injuries being caught on camera for them to actually make a change. But now you can see, there was a game the other day where a broken bat came flying into the stands and bounced right off the netting. And
Gosh,
that
yeah.
broken bat was very sharp and could have hurt someone easily,
Yeah.
So a lot of good has come. And I believe that the number of injuries have gone way, 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 way down. And now we're just trying to advocate for the minor league teams' stadiums to be enhanced with nettings too. They have been mandated, but that they've been told that they have to get it done by the end of 2025, which is kind of strange to give them 2 extra years to get it done when those parks are smaller and more tightly compact, and the same players, the same big, strong players hitting the ball. So I can't wait for that to happen.
I bet. You said there's a danger area. So is it the whole baseball arena that's affected, or is it just a certain section that you're looking at?
There's two sections that are the most dangerous, and the stadium is like shaped around the baseball diamond. So home plate is at the point of the diamond, and to the right, or to one area, to the one side of the stadium is the first baseline, and the other side is the third baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the danger zones for foul balls, because they tip it really hard and it just goes flying down the line, kind of thing, in these two directions. So that is where they extended it all the way past the dugouts, all the way to the foul poles, because that's where people are hitting. So that's been huge. And then again, like I said, in my mom's case, in the configuration of Dodger Stadium, the netting behind home plate wasn't high enough. So they
Right.
did raise it there.
And how often, you said they've started to catch on cameras the incidents. So what is the sort of percentage of people getting injured? Do you have any numbers around that?
Well, there was a Bloomberg study, and I don't have the exact year, and this was prior to 2018. These numbers came in, and there's about 1,400 injuries per season that were happening. So that's like 1 in 10 games somebody was getting injured across the nation, and just huge amounts of numbers. And these people are getting head concussions. They're losing eyes. They're living with a lifelong injury. And sadly, I found out all these people because there's a group called Injured Fans of MLB and IMLB on Facebook, and
Oh,
everybody
wow.
I know, it's heartbreaking. But you can go there and you can vent and you can share your story and you can cry and you could, just be validated, and you can complain that there's no compensation. There's no help for these people. On the back of the ticket, it says enter at your own risk.
Oh,
And
gosh.
that covers this billion-dollar corporation from any liability.
That just feels so wrong.
It's
It really
so
does.
wrong. And this law, then it's combined with a baseball law that was created in the 1920s.
Right.
They had different bats, they had different balls, they had different muscles, they had different stadium configuration. It was a totally different game. And so we've been told, in our case as well, these people have been injured. So they have ongoing costs of medical bills and headaches. But in our case, my mom died. So it was pretty dramatic. But again, no compensation. And we were told that if you sue, you will lose because of this baseball law. So it's silly then you could appeal it and then you could go and lose again. And you just keep losing.
How much money do you need to do that in the first place as well? If you're a regular person.
If you're a regular person who has now medical bills,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a sad, strange conundrum. And again, I was very shocked that Dodgers weren't the very first ones to do something. They could have spun it in their favor and said, "Oh my gosh, we need to fix this and do it right away." And they could have been the domino effect and started everybody off. But sadly, they were not the first ones. They were during that year too. There was my mom died in 2018, and they were in a world champion race for the World Series, and they did not want any bad press, so that added to it.
It's interesting though, as I said, like 1 in 10, 1,400 people a year. That feels like a significant number that is more than just an outlier exception. It's a tangible figure. But it's interesting, the mindset perhaps of these big organizations, which is it's still not enough for us to worry about bad press, not enough to worry about legal suits, because of this 1920s law, which just feels so wrong. So I can totally understand why you've been so passionate about this.
Yeah. It's just shocking, I mean, I mentioned in my book as well that if you're driving a car and something goes wrong, you take it back in and they immediately have a recall. If one person gets injured from an automobile, that company takes responsibility and immediately does a recall. Bring your car back in. We will fix that item that's wrong. And they take responsibility. But not, this is the opposite of that. 1,400 people and a couple of deaths. And I mean, it's nuts.
It is nuts. But I mean, it hasn't stopped your love for baseball. Is that right?
Yes, I still love baseball, and I still have a son that loves baseball, and I have a husband and a father and a sister, and we love baseball. I personally, I talk about this as well in my book because it's also a story it's my memoir. So it talks about my life and the story of my mom and growing up watching the Dodgers and going to the baseball games. And then at some point I got married and I had to relinquish my love for the Dodgers and take on my husband's team to have peace in the home. And he was a St. Louis Cardinals fan. And at this, stage of my life, the game has changed too. When I was a child, the players played for 10 years on the same team. You knew exactly which player was on which, base. And it was truly the word team, so I had my favorites in the 70s. And then that's true. Major League Baseball changed its, the way they work, and people can get traded mid-game, mid-season, so the players get all mixed up, and it didn't really have my same love for the Dodgers. So I became a Cardinals fan, which thankfully helped me get through that hideous pennant race when they were trying to win the World Series. Everyone's car was having flags waving the Dodgers. Everyone in California was wearing a hat and a shirt. And that was, I was not happy. So in 2018, they did lose. So I was very thankful for that. This year, my mom's been gone 6 years, and the Dodgers went back to the pennant race and beat the Mets, beat the Yankees, and they just became the World Series champions. And I was not rooting for them. But my father and my sister and my brother were rooting for the Dodgers. And
That's,
they don't go to the stadium. They won't buy a ticket. I won't say they. I say my father will not go back to the stadium. And that's not because he's 91 years old. He's very, functional and viable, and he has season tickets to his UCLA football games at this famous stadium at the Rose Bowl. And it's a ginormous, football stadium, and he manages that every week. So it's not about not getting out. It's about going to the Dodger Stadium.
That's really sad, but totally understandable again. So how long did it take you to, I guess, go from processing your grief to feeling like I've got to do something about it? Was there an instant, did it come from anger? Did it come from sort of frustration? What were you thinking when you went on this path to write your book and raise awareness?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Well, in the beginning, my father just said it's fate. It was meant to be. The 40,000 people in the stadium, the ball found Linda, and it's meant to be. That's all there is to it. So we kind of accepted that, and we, went through our. I talk about how it was a little bit awkward in the book about her burial and all that, but when it came down to it, it was, we went through it forward with it. And it wasn't until I started seeing people and say, oh, hey, how are you? Or how's your mom? And I would have to start telling this story. Oh, my mom's no longer with us. She got hit by a foul ball at Dodger Stadium and died. And immediate reactions, people's mouth would just fall open. What? Because she wasn't sick when I say she died. And then when I say how she died, they're like, how come I didn't hear about it? And what did the Dodgers do for you? Those were the two questions every single person I encountered asked me. And it got me thinking, hey, how come nobody knows this story? Why wasn't it in the news? This is something. People need to be a little bit concerned where they're sitting in the stadium. And so I sat down, and just started doing some research. And what I found was Googling, injuries and deaths at the ballparks. I found a nice article by this man, Willie Weinbaum, from ESPN. And he said, isn't it great? 2018, the nettings have just been extended to the dugouts and injuries are down. And I said to myself, what? The nettings were recently, there was a need for extended netting. And they decided to extend it to the end of the dugout, which would have been like maybe 1/3 of the way they are now.
Right.
And that was new, was an extension. And I was like, reading, I said, oh, isn't this great? And then I wrote the guy back. I said, oh, and they said, injuries are down and only one death occurred, in 1970, And so I wrote him back and I said, well, my mom just died in August. How can I get that statistic changed to 2 people died?
Yeah.
And so he wrote me back like instantaneously and was like, what are you talking about? And again, this is months after the incident, and an ESPN reporter had no idea. And that was the snowball effect. Once I gave him permission to tell the story, I got bombarded by every network, every reporter, everybody, calling me, is this true? What happened? Da, da, da. And then I became like in reporter mode or journalist mode or advocate mode. And I began to tell my story over and over and kind of, I wouldn't be crying anymore because I was saying it so many times.
Yeah.
And my brother and sister would be like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. It's so emotional. How can you keep your composure? And I thought, yeah, that is interesting. I can do this, but I felt the need to do it. And again, you do get a little desensitized telling the same story over and over. So it wasn't until all that died down and then COVID hit. And then I started this journey of like finding, going online and joining coaching sessions and finding, people to network with and stuff. And I was sharing my story. I'm not sure why it even came up, but he's like, Jana, this is a story that you need to write down in a book. And I was like, wait, what? Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to relive this horrible tragedy and tell my story? And that's just too sad. Here I am. It's sad enough. We're stuck in COVID. I'm trying to find my passion project and lift myself out of this funk, like everyone's doing. And he said, no, think of it as a legacy for your mom and sharing her story and the good you can do, And then I was like, okay, I just kind of said, okay. It didn't take much convincing. And again, I had the time. It was a fabulous COVID project to just lock myself in a room and go down that path. And I am a journal writer historically, but I am a visual artist first and foremost. I'm a painter. So I do have a visual thought process. And I can remember into, things in my life very vividly through color and sound and, as an artistic brain. So I found the stories and the description of my mom and the situations and all that just coming back to me. And I poured it into the writing, and it was very therapeutic because now I was able to grieve. Now I was able to cry. Now I was able to think about the story one day at a time and, get angry and get sad and all that stuff where I had to keep a straight face for the TV cameras previously,
Yeah.
So it was very helpful, very, very transformative. And, to everybody's surprise, they liked the book. They didn't think, how could we, there's always that imposter syndrome. How can
Sure.
a random person who's really a visual artist, write a book that means something and that people will like? And thankfully, I got a lot of wonderful feedback from people that weren't even baseball fans. People that just, that reminded me of my grandma and my mom, reminded me of, a sad person in my life that passed away. So it touched on a lot more themes than just, raising the nets at a baseball game.
That is amazing. But also, I think that the message around the journaling and the need to grieve, the ability to grieve, I think obviously you had quite extreme situation going on TV talking about what had happened. But you touched on a really good point, which is people often don't get the space to grieve because you have to maintain a certain composure for the world around you. You almost have to keep yourself together so that everyone else is okay. And I think knowing that there is an outlet, whatever that is, and in this case, writing the book, is really important for whatever the situation to allow people to grieve in a way that is suitable to them and know that it's okay. But also know that it doesn't happen. Grief doesn't have a timeline. There's not like, oh yeah, 6 weeks, you'll be fine type situation. It's 6 years, it's 6 weeks, it's who knows. So it's wonderful that you're able to have that space. But I think people need to understand that it's okay to have that space.
Yes, it is. And again, I was thankful. I was thankful to be able to process it all and go through it. And then, have a transformative ending where, it truly was a legacy for my mom. Her death was not in vain. By speaking out and using my voice for good, I was able to make change in a very big way, or, be a cog in the wheel that made change. But it felt really satisfying. And I am, pretty confident that the numbers have truly gone down. And you could, you can tell that people are sitting in safer spaces now. Like I mentioned, that you can see that broken bat fly and bounce off the netting. And, you know that something good has happened there. So, yeah, I'm very proud of myself. And I want to encourage other people to, have an outlet, whether it is painting or drawing or writing a book and sharing their grief and, or the other thing, something is out there in the world that you need to speak out and use your voice for good in all kinds of ways. And how you're doing as well, Philippa, by having this podcast. It's helping a lot of people share their stories, and you're using your voice for good on a constant basis.
Thank you. Absolutely. What is next for you with this? So you've obviously successfully got a lot of changes made to the netting, so that's amazing. Is there something else that you're passionate about now, or is it kind of go back to living your life and being content with where you are?
A little bit of both. I mean, I enjoy going on these podcasts because I am trying to share the message. I still, want people to go to the games and enjoy their favorite sport, but now you can look at the inventory of tickets and select a seat behind the nets.
Yeah.
You can purposefully make yourself safe and, going to the games now. So, I'm trying to get that message out. And again, the minor league stadiums aren't quite done yet. And also college. I did a book club, a random book club wanted me to talk about my book. And it was about an hour away from my home. I only knew the person who was the hostess. And 2 people in that group of 20 were hit by a ball at a college baseball game
Oh, wow.
or knew somebody. That the one got
Yeah.
hit and one knew somebody. And so college ball is dangerous too. Wait,
Well,
you know,
but what was that? You said it was like 1 in 10. So actually 20 people, 2 people got hit or injured.
yeah,
That's the statistic, right?
yeah,
That's crazy.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. So anyway, I am living my life, and I go in spurts where I'm like, oh, I need to talk about my book and I need to get it out there. And again, this was a World Series year again for California, and people are talking about baseball, and I just wanted to say, if you're good, especially for those games, they have to fork out tons of money to go to the game. I say, you make sure you step behind the nets and be safe.
Absolutely. I've never seen baseball, obviously being British, but I follow on Instagram something called Banana Ball. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but it seems to be baseball with singing and dancing in it. So when I'm over the States, I'm going to try and see if I can at least watch, either go to a baseball game or a banana board game. I'm open to either, but it looks a lot of fun.
That is great. Yeah, that's a really fun parody on baseball. And they just are out there to have fun. I do have to mention real quick that so my dream, actually, the next step I would love to turn this book into a story, a movie, or
Brilliant.
not really a documentary per se, but just a story, a movie that would be moving to people. And I think it would be interesting to change the story a little bit. It's like, what if one of those baseball executives' family got hit by a ball? Would if things changed quicker? Would they have a different take on things? And that kind of story. And my husband reached out to a producer. He was watching a Netflix story, and it was something in the UK. And you're going to laugh at me. I'll probably pronounce it wrong, but it was soccer, and it was either FIFA or FIFA. Which one?
Do you know what? I don't know. I think it's FIFA.
FIFA.
I'm sure it's FIFA. I was laughing because I was like, oh no, you're going to ask me.
Yeah. So that was a big controversy. And there was a documentary beautifully made about it. My husband randomly reached out to the producer, and he sent an email. I mean, technology is like that now. You can just kind of reach out. And so this guy actually wrote me back and said, sure, I'll talk to you. And it was a 40-minute, phone call where I pretty much talked the whole time. And he was calling me from England or, in the UK. And he says, wow, this really is an interesting story because it does sound like a cover-up. It's a shame nothing is being done for these injured folks, kind of thing. And he goes, well, let me talk to my partner and get back with you. And we were like, we just reached out to one random person about a movie idea, and he was interested. So it was shocking. But, okay, he finally came back and took your stance saying, we invest like 3 years, 4 years into making a documentary story. And being from the UK, and we don't know enough about baseball. We would have to really dig deep. Soccer, they could manage, but baseball, he said, I have to defer it to my, colleagues abroad if they want to do it. And so I never, that didn't happen, but it was exciting to know that he thought enough of it to take my call and to hear about that. So if anyone's listening has any connections, it's just an interesting feel good story. Like, it doesn't have to be a horrific story. It could be like, wow, something good came of this, and, I
mean, so I love sports films, movies, like, Remember the Titans and Blindside and Field of Dreams. But I think, that's the only, and to your point about baseball, in the UK, we don't play baseball at all. We have a thing called rounders. You play until you're about 11 in school. It's, we think it's like baseball. So we find baseball very confusing because it's like, isn't that the game you play when you're like 11 and then you don't play it anymore? But it isn't quite the same. It's far bigger and better what you do. But I do think sports movies, because you have a team overcoming a challenge, coming together, working hard. And of course, in your story, it's not so much the sports team that came together, but you still worked hard, you overcame a challenge, and that bettered sport. And I always think that sport is one of those things that shouldn't be political. It shouldn't be, what's the word? it shouldn't be so corporate, because sports give people a lot of hope, and it brings towns together. Sometimes divides towns. We have what's called the derby over in the UK, and like Man United versus Man City is not a good day to be in Manchester. But sports is a really, really powerful tool that everyone around the world can relate to in some way, shape, or form. And so to be able to take any situation and turn it into positive, I think that to me is the essence of sportsmanship. And so what you have done, despite the MLB corporation attempts, is remarkable. But hopefully someone will see that power as well. And yeah, that's a story I'd watch.
I appreciate that. Yeah, again, I mean, it's a long haul, but there's always the chance. And besides rounders, you guys play cricket.
We do, yes.
So
yes.
Somebody a journalist reached out to me randomly about cricket. And they're like, do you think we need to have some safety measures in our cricket games? And I'm like, I had to Google it up and see, and it's a very big, hard ball.
It is.
So I said, sure, why not? If that ball is going places it shouldn't be going, why not? But it was interesting that there was somebody reached out to me that way.
Do you know what? I've seen the hits that baseball players make, and they are massive. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite as massive in cricket. And plus, like the stereotype is to have a cup of tea and sandwiches while you're watching it as well. It's like a very civilized Sunday afternoon game. But do you know what? To your point on baseball, the equipment has changed. The game has changed. The bats are made of different things. The balls are made of different things. Who knows? And it doesn't take much to change someone's life almost overnight. So we never know. I'll keep an eye out for nets at our cricket games. But mostly I see it in like villages around the country on a Sunday afternoon, everyone in their cricket whites, and it's a very chilled out affair and not that competitive, I don't think.
That's nice. Well, that's nice. Here it gets a little too competitive, but it's exciting and it's fun. And again, we're getting national recognition with Shohei Ohtani in Japan, and it has to be quite interesting. I'll have to share one more thing with you. In my book, there's a family, generational connections in Japan.
Oh, wow.
And there's a character in my story, not a character, but a human man named Yasuaki Morikawa. And he is an English teacher, and he's my contemporary. And his father was friends with my father, and now our kids are friends with our children are friends. And that's a piece of the story that gives it some human context, because when I did visit it in Japan, they have nettings 360 degrees all the way around the net.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And then they also have what they call the danger excitement zone. So you can sit in the danger zone with a helmet and a glove and people blowing whistles. Here comes the ball, here comes the ball. So like you could have that experience and sit in their danger zone. So it was quite interesting. And then full circle, this man in my book, who's the English teacher, he got his 280 students to buy the book, and they're using it to learn English.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, isn't that amazing? You know how you like read this passage and answer these questions? He's using my chapters, and I'm just so overwhelmed by that. And he's in the book, so it's even more fun. Plus, it talks about the Dodgers, and the kids are all watching TV to see Ohtani. So it's crossing barriers, it's crossing generations, and that's kind of a fun little thing that's happened.
I really hope that made you #1 bestseller in Japan, though, right? Because that would be super cool as well.
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, at least the students have bought it.
Yeah.
They have to read it for a grade.
That is awesome. Well, Jana, if anyone wants to find you, make a film out your book, how can they find you?
Yeah, so the book is published on Amazon and Amazon Books, and it's just my name, Jana Brody, and Sit Behind the Nets is the title. I also, it's audio now, thanks to AI, which is super fun. A lot of people aren't reading these days, but you can listen to it. And I have a website. It's just my name again, janabrody.com, and you can find more information there.
Amazing. It's been Really interesting. Thank you so much. I'm just so amazed at how you could take something so drastic and bad and turn it into something good. So thank you for doing that, and I hope that your campaign continues to take effect over the minor leagues and the colleges as well.
Thank you so much, Philippa, and I appreciate calling me across the world. It's so fun.
It is, isn't it? Yes, technology is fun when it works anyway.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.